Hey, Dr. Yvette, this is Dr. Darko. Thank you so much for inviting me onto your second episode of A Global Physician on a Mission. I really appreciate it.
Good evening. I am so glad that you're here and we can have a chat.
So I know this is your show. You run the show in this Bad Mama Jamma, but I'm actually going to be interviewing you. And, obviously I normally interview other doctors who are doing amazing things outside of medicine, which, by the way, I need to have you on my show. But we're going to use this as an opportunity to learn more about Dr. Yvette McQueen and how you started, with your medical career and how you transitioned into, being that global, physician. So how's that sound?
That sounds wonderful. Great.
Okay.
So you want me to start?
Well, you know what? How about this? Why don't you go start? Let's your show. I'll let you lead, and then I'll take over if I need to.
Okay, great. So I am a Midwest hometown girl from Cleveland, Ohio. I mentioned that before. And I love science from the very beginning. In school and high school. So when I took that high school biology class and people had to cut open the cat to dissect it, my friend and we actually sewed it back up with blue.
Oh, so I was about to say, because the way how you paused, I thought you were going to say you passed out or something like that.
No, we sewed it back up with blue thread. And from then on, we knew we wanted to do medicine. So I went on to become a doctor and she went on to become a nurse. But I had a
wait, slow down a little bit though. So are y'all still friends to this day?
Yes, we talk maybe once or twice a year.
Really? Okay.
Yes.
That's awesome. Now, what about like getting that going through that because you skipped literally like 10, 15 years, like going from elementary school to being a physician. Like, tell us about that transition, those transitions and going into medical school. Were there any difficulties, any hoops, any hurdles? Anything that we can learn more about you that you had to go through?
Sure. So I had the non-traditional pathway. So I went to college in I started in Cleveland, Ohio. And unfortunately, I grew up in the late 60s and early 70s. Haha, I just dated myself.
You mentioned yourself. It wasn't me, for the record.
But at that time, as far as an African-American female pursuing science, they didn't believe in STEM. I was supposed to be a teacher. I was supposed to be a office worker, and that's where my guidance counselor led me to. But of course, I'm a rebel and wouldn't listen. So I originally did my first 2 years of undergraduate in Cleveland, Ohio, and then I ran out of student aid money. So I set out for like a year and a half and I worked at a graphic art store. So I learned how to be a graphic artist actually. And then I saved enough money to return to school, but I decided to go to Michigan. And I went to Central Michigan University where I majored in physiology with a political science minor. I liked government and politics, and I just thought I would throw that in with it. So
do you use that at all right now? Any of the political science, poli-sci?
Well, there's always politics in the hospital.
I see. So what happens when you watch like CNN right now? Do you like go crazy or, whatever news source? Sorry, I didn't mean to lock it down into one. But do you like go crazy when you see what's going on TV right now and stuff?
I do because people have they don't teach it anymore. They don't teach government and political science in school, and people don't understand the process between Congress and Senate and the judicial system. So I think
it's funny as you're talking about this. I'm thinking about that cartoon. I'm just a bill. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, does anybody? How long ago was that? Like nobody does.
Government
they don't teach that anymore, right? Civics.
Yeah, right. Government, civics, or social studies too. So that came in the play. So yeah, that's what I did. And then when I got out of college, I graduated with a physiology degree. And what can you do with a physiology degree? I knew I eventually wanted to do medicine, but I wasn't ready. And I didn't go to medical school directly. So I actually went back to Cleveland and I worked at Case Western Reserve and Cleveland Clinic, which is one of the two of the prominent Midwest centers for science and research.
I'd
So,
say, yeah.
so yeah, I worked in the heart center, and I also worked with cystic fibrosis. And then that just got my juices going a little bit more. But I also worked in the emergency room. So I had to make a little cash. And I worked in the emergency room and got my paramedic license. And at that point, I did apply to medical school. I applied to medical school and I got in Toledo, Ohio. And I will say life has a way of disrupting your life. And I was young, in love, and I fell for a guy that said, oh, I love you too. But it didn't happen that way. And I ended up having heartbreak during my first year of medical school.
Uh-oh.
And, and I actually went into a deep depression. I went into depression and didn't go to class. And due to not going to class, guess what?
You flunked out.
Yep, I failed. I failed. And so then I went back home, kind of humbled, and said, well, what can I do with this degree? So actually I started teaching school. I was teaching, started as a substitute high school teacher in science. And then I started teaching at junior college. At that point, they called it junior college, anatomy and physiology, got another research job, met a wonderful mentor who's a cardiologist. She's one of the well-known African-American women in cardiology. And she was a mentor. And she said, girl, if you don't get your butt back in medical school. So we worked out a plan, and I ended up going back to the same medical school in Toledo, Ohio. And I went into what they call the 5-year program, where you take your first 3 years of lecture classes and for 3 years instead of 2 years, and then slowly weed back into the traditional clinical work.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So that's what I did. But I went back and I was older. So when I went back to school, I was 29 years old.
You're hungry, probably.
Yes. And I was like, wait a minute, I'm a student. Teach me. It is your job to teach me. I'm paying you to teach me. I had the support of the dean of the school at that point, and they rallied behind me, and they were like, we're going to get you through, Yvette. And I was humbled, and I was not afraid to ask for help. And I think that's the one thing a lot of people, we're taught, oh, we got to be strong. We got to be, we got to keep it together, and no one needs to know our problems. But I shouted off the rooftop. If I didn't do well in the class, I was like, okay, I got a 67. Who's going to help me? Okay. I got a 75. Who's going to help me?
So that's definitely out of the ordinary, right? Because
yes.
You probably see it more with non-traditional students, I'm assuming, just because you're more mature about it. But you definitely don't see that in medical school because it's very competitive. And people don't want to show their weakness, or at least, some of the weaknesses that they may have. So that's a interesting point that you brought out.
Yeah. And they a lot of people, they try to pitch you against each other. Some people do. But I will say also, I had some very Christian instructors. So I think that helped me too, because they really promoted us more. So I wanted to go into emergency medicine. I knew I wanted to go to emergency medicine. Actually, I tried trauma since you're a trauma surgeon, but I hung out with a trauma surgeon for like a week, and I was like, oh, he doesn't have a life. I can't do this.
What? Come on now.
And then I noticed I get a little claustrophobic in the OR with the mask on.
Yeah, that's understandable. Yeah. That's a common thing that you hear from med students.
Yeah. But I loved emergency medicine because I got to do a lot. I still had an interest in cardiology, but I noticed that 35 to 40% of the medicine you practice in the emergency department is somehow related to cardiology. So I got used to it. I don't like routine. I like on the go. And I started actually the emergency medicine club. At that point, it wasn't popular, emergency medicine, and it was still a competitive, but I just worked in my clinicals and scored the highest I could. And I start networking. And that's another thing. People need to know that medicine is about networking. Sometimes it's not the highest score. It's all about networking. And I networked with people I knew in emergency medicine, or particularly if I found an African-American physician in emergency medicine, I would stalk them. So with the National Medical Association, which is the largest association for African American physicians, they have a section, and they all got to know me as a medical student, and they were very helpful in promoting me and guiding me to get an emergency medicine residency.
And you haven't looked back since. Now tell us, like, how did you, obviously you're well seasoned in emergency medicine. Tell us about that transition, that pivot to where you are now, where travel is, a part of your career, a part of, what you normally do. Like, let's talk about that, because most ER docs are, they're in the hospital, they're in the emergency room. So how have you been able to incorporate travel into your life now?
Well, I always loved travel because I had my first passport when I was 14 years old, and I went over to Germany by myself to visit a pen pal. But I noticed that a lot of my physicians that I work with, they actually had an alternative life than just medicine. And that's the great thing about emergency medicine. Since we don't have an office, we don't have an overhead, people aren't dependent on us for their income. They're dependent on us on for their life, but not for their income. So a lot of my physicians, they will work 7 days in a row and then be off for 2 weeks, or they will work say 10 days a month and then be off. Like one of my favorite attendings, she was always off somewhere. And we're like, Dr. Brown, we haven't seen you for a while. And she says, oh yeah, I was over in China and now I'm back and I'm going to work my 10 days and then I'm going to be off. And I kind of said, I want to do that because I love travel and I have passion for other things. So when I got out of residency, I did get a full-time job. I worked in a hospital. I did my 12 shifts a month, and I was very bored. I was very bored. And I said, well, let me try an academic center. So I moved over to an academic center where I was teaching residents and medical students, but it was still very kind of rigid, more than what I really wanted with emergency medicine. So I just followed the model of some of my attendings that I saw when I was doing residency. And there's something we call local tenens, and it's called substitute doctor, where I go in and I work, say, 4 or 5 shifts a week, and then I fly home. And I may do that 2 or 3 times a month, or sometimes I go to the same hospital for a long period of time. Sometimes it's just like filling in. So I'm filling in for maternity leave. I'm filling in for a doctor that got sick. I'm filling in if the hospital lost a contract and have to go to a new company. That's what I'm doing. I stay out of the politics of hospitals. I go and do what I want to do, is see patients. And I can control my own schedule because, once again, I like to do other things. So, and that part of it is travel. And in traveling as a locums, I had to stay healthy. So the first couple years I did it, I'm on the planes, I'm in the car, I'm in the hotel. I found myself.
And you're eating hotel food?
No, I do not eat hotel food, but I was eating.
Well, but initially though, right? Probably, or
I was eating fast food.
Fast food, okay, right.
Fast food, you're right. And I have a problem with eating hospital food. It reminds me of residency. So I had to get myself healthy. So one, yes, I got into a regimen of how I ate, and actually either taking prepared meals or stopping at the grocery store in the town that I was in and brought my food because most of the hotels had microwaves and refrigerators. I also just decided a regimen about how I travel on the plane, how I travel in a rental car. I always take my sanitizer wipes. And even though they say they clean that car, yeah, those cars aren't always clean.
Take a blue light in there.
You should.
All right, let's move on. This is gonna get nasty quick. Well, let me ask you this question then. So what are some of the things that patients, travelers, what are the things that they need to watch out for when they're traveling? Because obviously you're a global physician on a mission. You are traveling to all of these different places in between, and I'm sure you get to see a lot of things and observe a lot of mistakes or things that patients do or people do that gets them sick. Can you talk about maybe one or two of them and some tips that you've seen?
So one of the things I harp on, and I talked about it in my first session, was hydration.
Mm,
People need to stay hydrated because I believe that everyone is 1 liter down. You're dehydrated at least by 1 liter. I think everyone is, just because of the American lifestyle. So when you go up in the plane, the compartmental pressure actually reduces your water content. You're not drinking because you're busy packing and running to the plane, or you're doing the coffee and the sodas. So you're dehydrated. So people need to stay hydrated to feel better, to reduce jet lag. It helps to prevent blood clots, as I said before. People also are very sedentary, unfortunately. You get on the plane, and if you're on there for 3 or 4 hours, you sit there and watch your movie. You need to get up and move. A lot of the planes do have the leg exercises either on video or in the seat compartment behind it to give you leg exercises. I call them toe crunches, moving your legs, marching up and down just while you're sitting, or just get up and walk up the aisle. Only when the seatbelt sign is off, of course. So that's what I see. Also, I see people not eating right. And then, like I said, I had to adjust that where it's, I have actually an ebook out about tips for eating healthy while traveling and dining out. And one of the biggest things is portion controls.
mm.
Portion control is a big thing in the U.S. diet.
So say the name of your ebook and where can they find it at?
So my ebook is How to Eat Healthy While Dining Out and Traveling. And you can find it on my website, which is YvetteMcQueenMD.com.
See,
Or
you see, I'm writing that down because I travel a lot too, so I need to take some of those tips off. Go ahead, keep going. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
that's okay. Or you could also go to, what is it called? I just forgot it. Healthy Travel Tips, healthytraveltips.com. And I change it every 3 months. So I don't know if it's on the ebook right now, but healthytraveltips.com. And I change it according to the season.
I love it. I love it. I love it. All right. All right, Dr. McQueen, we are getting towards the end of my interrogation. My interview of you. So let's do some fast fire questions. That's what I do on my show. If that's okay, if I do that on your show, let's do some fast fire questions. You tell me, the thing that comes off the top of your head the quickest. Okay. You game?
I'm good.
All right. So if we can parse this down to one thing, what's the most important thing you want people to get from this podcast episode?
Be yourself and trust yourself.
Okay. I love it. I love it. If there is someone that you admire or someone that, gives you some inspiration, who is that? And would you be willing to trade places with them for like 24 hours?
No, I love me.
Okay. Enough said. Move on. What is a life hack or piece of technology that you use that makes you continue to be very successful, continue to be very healthy?
Oh, wow. I walk, put my 10,000 steps in each day,
Every day.
every day.
Not even like 9,700 and it's always 10,000.
10,000.
Wow. Okay. All right. Awesome. Well, look, this was a great opportunity to talk with the global physician on a mission, everyone. Thank you very much for allowing me to be on your show. I'm really excited for you. You're launching, you're telling people about all the great things and all the great tips that you have. So I'm really excited to watch, you continue your arc with this podcasting thing. So why don't you I'll let you kind of finish this show out. This is your show. And I guess kind of just take it to the bridge. Let them know more about you.
I totally enjoy that. And once again, that I want you to know, this is Dr. Nii Darko, and he is on Docs Outside the Box. So you should find him there also, along with my show, A Global Physician on a Mission. So who am I? Once again, I'm Yvette McQueen, MD, an emergency physician and travel doctor, a global physician on a mission to educate about health, travel wellness, and disease prevention. You can find me on all social medias at Yvette McQueen MD. And of course, my website is YvetteMcQueenMD.com. So I'm glad you joined me tonight, and ciao for now.